I'm Kate Bruce, and I'm working with Pete and with Colin in CODEC. And one of the things that fascinates me is the question of preaching and the place of preaching in the contemporary church, which raises all kinds of questions about how the digital environment affects preaching. It raises other questions. There are voices around that say that the days of preaching are over, it's finished. And I'd like to explore that question. It fascinates me. What's the theology of preaching in our world today? What's the purpose? What's the point? How is preaching received? And that links into some of the research that Pete was talking about. We've been asked to do some research for the College of Preachers, a pilot project looking at the reception of preaching in the church today, the results of which there's a fairly small-scale study. The results of that will be out in January next year, hopefully then feeding into a much larger-scale study through 2010, which is the 50th anniversary of the College of Preachers, so as part of their celebration of preaching as they look to the future of preaching. So that's one of the, two of the elements of the of preaching within CODEC, of that stream. One is my own research, the work that we're doing with the College of Preachers. I'm also interested in developing a network of young preachers and putting young preachers in touch with each other and learning from them. How they're people who are very much embedded in a way that perhaps as an alien, picking up the language, I'm not. They're very much more embedded in the digital environment. How are they talking to each other? What do they think about the place of preaching? How can they support and resource each other? And how can older preachers help them to develop their thinking and theology about preaching? And we've also been running last year we did a couple of days on preaching from Mark's Gospel here. We had two really big conferences, day conferences, that were really well supported and well received, bringing together preachers, theologians, local preachers, vicars and ministers, and working together on how we can improve our preaching practice. And this year we'll be running another day conference on Luke here at St John's. And we've also got an international preaching conference in September. I've got leaflets for both these conferences. If you're interested, when we'll be getting Carol Loren, Bishop Will Willerman, and a whole host of other people over to talk about the subject of preaching. So do, over the next few days, if you want to come and engage me on the whole question of the place of preaching in the digital environment, please do, because I'm absolutely fascinated to listen, to learn, to share ideas. Thank you. I'll hand over to Colin.
Hi, my name is Colin Greene. I'm in some ways the new boy as far as CODEC is concerned, having recently just returned from 5 years teaching in America. And my wife Karen is with me, who is from Pennsylvania. I was teaching systematic theology to begin with at Seattle Pacific University. And latterly I was professor of theological and cultural studies at a very interesting situation or seminary that combines theology with psychotherapy and cultural studies, and sees itself in some ways as the first postmodern theological seminary in Seattle in America. So that's where I've come from, and I was invited to be part of the CODEC team and to head up the Center for Theology and Cultural Engagement. And we are developing a number of research proposals. For a number of years now, I've been working on theological and biblical proposals vis-a-vis how we engage systematically with our cultural context, both in its socio-political sense, in terms of popular culture, what we understand by culture, and obviously the digital environment is part of that. I'm very interested in getting a new DMin up and running, Doctor of Ministry course on the theology and praxis of cultural engagement, and we're working with Durham on that initiative at the moment. I have a number of research partnerships that we're developing. A very interesting one with the Leilon Network for missional leaders called Mission in Globalizing Cultures, which is actually involving some 7 countries where we're trying to research into the lived narratives and stories that people live by and see where that intersects with remnants of the biblical story, or maybe something more coherent than we might imagine, and that in some ways links in with the biblical literacy work that Peter is doing. At the moment, that's located on-the-ground research, and we're doing it with the Centre for Theology and Psychology in Cambridge. How do people make sense of their life as they indwell various cultural narratives and religious stories? It's happening in Korea, Australia, that's the research, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, here in the UK and in America. So that's a big international research project. You've also seen something on the web, if you've looked at CODEC, called the Durham Conversations, and that's, we hope, a forum for discussion where we will gather together some interesting people to address issues to do with faith and society, faith and culture, the Bible and society. What we'd like to head off with next year, 2010, given the 100th, the centenary actually of Bishop Leslie Newbigin's birth, would be the first Durham conversation addressing the issue of the Newbigin legacy. How do we take that legacy, his work and his initiatives in terms of outreach and mission to our own secular culture, how do we develop that in the 21st century? Those are a number of the things that we're involved with. We're just getting these things up and running. If you would like to be part of an expanding network, because networking is the key agenda at the moment, who else would like to be involved in this center? What are your networks? How can we establish research partnerships? How can we build this work together? So please take the opportunity to come and talk to us through our time together.